My husband preferred to fake his death to be with his white moonlight. A decade after my husband's supposed death, I stumbled upon a text conversation between my son and that man. The messages read, "Dad, a young man has been pursuing Mom recently. Is our family's fortune about to fall into the hands of an outsider?" The other side replied, "I understand, son. I'll try to return as soon as possible." But my husband had passed away 10 years ago, killed in a plane crash during a business trip. His death certificate still rested on the nightstand beside my bed. So, who exactly was talking to my son? My mind reeled. I immediately dispatched someone to investigate. It turned out that 10 years ago, my husband had never even been on that fateful flight. He had altered his itinerary to meet an old flame and decided to stay, settling in a foreign country. His entire family, and even my own flesh and blood, had conspired with him to keep this truth hidden from me. Looking at their chat, I suddenly realized that for the past decade, I had meticulously managed both the business and the family in his stead. Now, he was tired of his free life and wanted to return to reclaim control. Could anything be that convenient? As I was getting ready for work, the phone on the table unexpectedly chimed with a new message. It was a notification from my son's phone. Yesterday, his teacher had reported him for bringing his phone to school, so I had confiscated it that morning, leaving him extremely sulky when he left. I originally had no intention of snooping through his messages and paid it no mind. However, as my eyes inadvertently swept across the screen, I abruptly stopped. The word "Dad" was clearly displayed. I picked up the phone, realizing the message was set to private, preventing me from seeing the sender's content. I gently swiped to open it, trying my son's birthday as the password, but it failed. My own birthday didn't work either. Remembering the recent messages, I entered my supposedly deceased husband's birthday, and the phone unlocked. Looking up at the message pinned to the top of the list, my eyes widened in shock. "Son, have you gone to school yet?" I gasped, dropping the phone onto the table with a clatter and stepping back 2 paces. I couldn't be blamed for such a horrified reaction. After all, my husband had been dead for a full 10 years. Goosebumps erupted all over my body. The housekeeper, hearing the commotion, rushed over and asked, "Madam, is everything all right?" Panicked, I clutched the phone tightly in my hand and whispered, my voice trembling, "It's nothing." I quickly retreated into my study, my hands still shaking as I reopened the message. The words that appeared before my eyes made me dizzy. "Dad, did you and Ms. Lin argue and break up before? Are you planning to come home? Recently, a younger man at the company has been pursuing Mom. If you don't come back, our family's assets might just be taken by someone else." That was my son's message, and the man on the other side replied, "Don't worry, son. Your mother hasn't married anyone else despite my long absence, nor has she changed your surname. Besides, she manages everything at the company and at home so meticulously. How could she possibly let the Ha family's legacy fall into someone's hands?" In that moment, I felt as if something had just struck me hard on the head. Though they were simple words, I, who was accustomed to deciphering the most complex contracts, couldn't grasp the meaning of the content on my son's phone. My lips trembled. I slowly scrolled down to continue reading the messages. Every 2 or 3 messages, they would chat a few lines almost every Sunday. And whenever my son went to school, he would send that person a message. "I'm off to school, Dad. Remember to wait for me to come home. Don't send any messages right now. Mom might see them." But in his hurry this time, he forgot to send it. I played the audio recording the other person had sent my son 2 days ago. The man's voice within it extinguished my last sliver of hope. Though the tone was somewhat calmer, I immediately recognized it as my husband's voice. This situation was utterly preposterous. To be clear, my husband's death certificate and the announcement of his passing were still neatly tucked away in the bedside drawer. Yet, he had unexpectedly appeared on the other end of a phone conversation. 10 years ago, when our son, Leo, was just 5 years old, my husband, Ethan Ha, said he was going on a business trip to Ninhai. The last voice message he sent me before the flight was, "Honey, I hear the jewelry in Ninhai is famous. I'll buy you a few pieces when I get back." But immediately after that, I received news of the plane crash. In a state of extreme shock, I completely blacked out. When I regained consciousness, my in-laws, their eyes swollen and red, informed me that the police had issued a death certificate and that everyone on that doomed flight had perished, their bodies unrecoverable. This event sparked a massive public outcry. Dozens of families with victims vehemently demanded an explanation from the airport, and I was among them. However, before I could voice my grief with the others, my in-laws hurriedly pulled me away. Nina, your health isn't good. While we never wished for this, it's already happened. Leo is only 5. You can't just think of yourself, you must think of our son. He's already lost his father. What would become of him if he lost his mother too? It was for my son that I had to force myself to stand up. But now I knew that the man I thought had ceased to exist for a decade was, in fact, alive and well in some distant land. That despicable man had been living lavishly and joyfully with another woman for 10 long years. His entire family conspired against me, and he didn't even show his face at his own parents' funerals. My heart twisted with a desire to cry, but after countless long nights, I had hardened myself, learning to bury my pain deep within. That's why now, my tears would not fall. It wasn't until a new message chimed from the other end that my mind snapped back to attention. "What's wrong, son? Is your mother getting too close to that man lately? I haven't heard back from you in ages." "All right, I'll find a way to return. There's nothing here left to concern myself with anyway." I gently placed the phone down, took a deep breath, and then called Assistant Lynn. "Investigate everything thoroughly for me. Find out everything, no matter the cost. How many more secrets have I been kept from? For 10 grueling years, from an innocent girl who knew nothing, I was forced to shoulder the position of CEO, personally managing all the company's affairs. It wasn't that I lacked the ability to handle many problems. It was because I had never harbored even a shred of suspicion. Even though I had anticipated the outcome, as I looked at the documents in my hands, my heart still ached beyond measure. While I endured long, sleepless nights filled with torment, my treacherous husband was leisurely enjoying himself with his first love. Even the root cause of what happened all those years ago revolved around that woman. Right before that fateful business trip, Ethan Ha received a call from her, causing him to immediately change his plans and miraculously escape that doomed flight. At the time I was unconscious, Ethan Ha's parents adamantly insisted that that woman was their son's savior, helping Ethan Ha preserve his life. But because the intertwined interests between our two families were so tight, Ethan Ha couldn't sever his marriage to me. That's why Ethan Ha orchestrated an incredibly cunning deception. He fled abroad, completely vanishing. It wasn't until our son turned 12, just before my mother-in-law passed away, that she called Ethan Ha to her side and revealed the truth to him. That son, the result of my countless days of painstaking nurturing, didn't hesitate for even 2 seconds before cheerfully accepting everything and quickly contacting his father. From then on, the two of them maintained a virtual relationship over the phone for 3 long years. That night, a new message appeared. "Son, where are you? I'm packing my bags. Help me keep an eye on your mother, subtly paving the way for my return home, okay?" I replied with an okay emoji. Time flew by, and it was soon Friday, the day my son returned from school. The moment he stepped through the door, he rushed to where the phone was kept. I had already put everything back to its original state, deleting all conversations with Ethan Ha. My son let out a relieved breath, then carefully observed my expression. I didn't even glance at him, simply focusing on my work with a furrowed brow. "Don't glue your eyes to your phone all day. Focus entirely on your studies." Hearing this, my son truly cast aside all his worries. And that evening, I instructed the housekeeper to prepare a table laden with all my son's favorite dishes. Under his surprised gaze, I poured him a small amount of wine. "You're almost 16, a young man now, Leo. Your mother is so pleased to see you so filial and sensible." I sipped my own wine, trying to drown my sorrow while still smiling meaningfully at my son. "Just drink a little, it's fine. Like father, like son, as they say, when your father was alive." My face momentarily grew profoundly melancholic. He was so good at holding his liquor. "In the blink of an eye, your father has been gone for 10 years, yet your mother still often loses herself in thought. Son, you're looking more and more like your father. Every time I see you, my heart aches. If your father were still alive, how happy our family of 3 would have been." My son's eyes suddenly lit up. He gently raised the wine glass to his lips and took a sip. "Mom, would you feel happy if Dad were still alive?" I subtly sniffled, then quickly wiped away tears that weren't even there. "Silly boy, what are you saying? Ever since your father passed away, my heart has been shattered. I'd sacrifice anything to bring him back. Without him, I truly find life meaningless. If it weren't for you, I would have followed him long ago." My son, after all, was only 16. He couldn't possibly discern how transparent my clumsy act was. His face flushed with excitement. He picked up the wine glass and chugged it down in one gulp. Mom, you said it yourself, okay? If Dad comes back, you absolutely must treat him well. Having tasted wine for the first time, just 2 sips made his head spin. Words spilled from him without a thought, completely unaware of what he was saying. Excitedly, he asked me, Mom, if you miss Dad so much, then I'll call him home. Dad just ended his relationship anyway. I looked at my son, silently nodding. My son, stammering with joy, pulled his phone from his pocket. I quickly slumped onto the table, feigning such extreme drunkenness that I was completely out of it. He aimed his phone's camera at me to record. Dad, Mom and I just had a few drinks? My son babbled incoherently. Mom just heard you're coming back and started crying her eyes out. She said as long as you come back, she'll accept anything. It wasn't until he put the phone down and let his heavy head fall onto the table that I slowly straightened up, my eyes like ice, as I looked at the screen to reply to the message from the other end. My son is so clever. Your mother truly loves me deeply. All those years ago, if I hadn't been afraid of not being able to let go of you too, I wouldn't have left for so long. Rest assured, this time I will definitely treat your mother well. I've changed my mind. I'll be back tomorrow. I suppressed the piercing pain in my heart, a slight sneer twisting my lips. So that's how it is. Is he tired of his little game? He'd lived freely and unrestrained for a decade out there, without any progress whatsoever. Now he dreamed of returning to enjoy a life of luxury, reaping the rewards of all my hard work. This son, it seemed, I had raised in vain. If he was no longer needed, then let it be. But I had poured so much heart and soul into rebuilding the company from the brink of bankruptcy. This legacy that I had spent my entire life building, did he truly think he could just take it away so easily? At dawn the next day, my son emerged from his bedroom, rubbing his temples. Mom, why are you up so early? He wondered. I took a sip of coffee and leaned against the kitchen counter, certainly to witness an interesting drama unfold. But I didn't reveal that, simply replying calmly, I'm not feeling well today, so I won't be going to work. My assistant had already verified Ethan Ha's flight information. It was a flight that departed the night before. He seemed this impatient, so he must be close to arriving. The doorbell suddenly rang, and a glint flashed in my eyes. I immediately brewed another aromatic cup of coffee, then carried it out to open the gate. My son had completely forgotten what he had done in his drunken state last night. He dazedly rubbed his forehead as he followed me, a puzzled expression on his face. Who is it? He asked. When the door swung open, I saw the face that once filled my days and nights with longing, now only fueling a bone-deep hatred. A cruel spark ignited in my eyes. I drew back and threw the cup of coffee straight at him with all my might. Ah! The man standing outside cried out in pain, coffee grounds splattering all over his face, instantly reddening it. I slammed the door shut, and before Ethan Ha could even register what happened, the door hit him squarely in the face again. Hearing the sound of someone tumbling down the steps outside, I clutched my bewildered and tense son's hand. Mom, it looked like I saw a ghost just now. Dad is standing outside, he exclaimed, startled and shocked. Dad! He then quickly pushed past me and rushed to open the door. Witnessing his anxious expression, my heart couldn't help but feel a chilling ache. Truly an ungrateful wretch, a chip off the old block. For 10 years I suffered, and he didn't care one bit. But a mere splash of coffee on his father made him this heartbroken. Mom, you misunderstand? My son cried, helping Ethan Ha up, looking at him with suspicion, wondering why Dad had appeared so suddenly without a word. Yet he dared not voice it. Ethan Ha, too, hadn't anticipated such a violent reaction from me. He had assumed his son had already informed me. He cautiously reached out to steady himself and stand upright. With a timid expression, he said, Honey, I'm home. I snatched a broom nearby, furiously swinging it at him. Get out! Stay away from my son. My husband is dead. Who are you to come here? The father and son huddled together, scrambling to run away as I chased them. My son wrestled the broom from my hand, yelling, Mom, please calm down. Ah, so it was all just a show. Seeing the broom snatched away, I angrily pursed my lips, then silently watched their every move. I just wanted to see how expertly they would spin this web of lies. Ethan Ha swallowed hard. What made him perceive the woman before him, whom he hadn't seen for a decade, as having a completely different aura? In the past, she had been so gentle and demure. But now he suspected she no longer harbored any feelings for her eyes were as deep and still as a silent lake. A decade ago, I was the first to jump from the plane, becoming the only survivor of that doomed flight. However, I was swept by the wind onto a cliff face and suffered a head injury. My memories only recently returned. With bloodshot eyes, he tremblingly reached out to grasp my hand. "My love, I've missed you so much, and our son too. I tried to get home as fast as I could." Hiding my sarcasm, I put on a shocked expression as I looked at him. He was truly skilled at fabricating stories. Next, my eyes welled up, I squeezed his hand tightly and remained silent for a long moment. I was certain my acting had been a resounding success. For the man, who had been full of suspicion just moments ago, finally looked completely at ease. After a long while, I pretended as if I had just accepted the situation, then rushed into his arms, weeping uncontrollably. My son, standing nearby, subtly winked at him with a smug look, and I caught that entire scene reflected in the mirror behind me. The prey had finally fallen into the trap. After a decade of luxurious hiding in a foreign land, it was now time for him to face the consequences. Ethan had desperately wanted to return to work at the company, but I used busyness as an excuse to put him off for nearly half a month. Until he could no longer contain his impatience, his face darkening as he asked me, "During my absence, have you been involved with those young men at the company? This is my empire, built by my father. For 10 years I was gone, and you truly managed things brilliantly, but now I'm back. Men handle public affairs, women manage private ones. It's time you went home to take care of the family and children." I subtly lowered my head, revealing a slightly sorrowful expression. "It's only about half a month until our son's birthday. I want to use this occasion to invite all our friends, relatives, and company colleagues to publicly announce your return to everyone. Otherwise, in the eyes of the world, I'll forever be a woman who lost her husband. How could you ever think such things about me? If only you hadn't suddenly disappeared that year, do you really think I yearned to shoulder the chaotic burden of your family's company?" My words were entirely sincere. When Ethan Ha and I married, he absolutely did not reveal the dire financial situation of his family business. From our wedding day, our lives had always depended on support from my parents. Until the birth of our son and the successive passing of my parents, the Ha family lost its stable foundation, causing the business to spiral into severe decline. It was precisely in the year Ethan Ha suddenly disappeared that the losses reached their peak. Against my will, I was forced to grit my teeth and accept this troublesome financial burden. Upon hearing my words, Ethan Ha's expression flickered with a hint of awkwardness, but then he tried to pull me into his embrace. Feeling somewhat uncomfortable, I took 2 steps back, but he didn't seem to notice. "My dear wife, you truly are capable. I was just too impatient seeing you toil away like that every day. If that's the case, then it's time we held a celebratory party. My wife has endured so much bitterness and resentment over the years. This time, we must show everyone our love in a grand way." I smiled subtly, indicating my agreement, then entrusted all the arrangements to my assistant Lynn. Half a month swiftly passed. On the occasion of my son's birthday, I sent invitations to his classmates, our close relatives from my husband's family, senior management within the company, project partners, and numerous influential figures in our industry. My husband glanced at the guest list printed on the invitations, his eyebrows subtly furrowing. "Isn't the number of guests a bit too many?" I shot him a playful, almost charming glare, my eyes brimming with feigned tenderness. "Too many? I think it's not enough. Your return fills me with such overwhelming joy. I only wish the entire world could know this wonderful news." Men often possess an inexplicable confidence. No matter how capable a woman is, they remain convinced they can conquer their counterpart through sheer masculine power. The moment the party officially began, I, microphone in hand, stepped forward. "Esteemed guests, I have wonderful news to share. The incident from a decade ago was merely a misunderstanding, and my beloved husband has returned." I covered my mouth, tears of emotion streaming down my face, causing everyone around to look astonished and begin whispering. Ethan Ha, with a proud expression, held his head high and his chest out, confidently striding onto the stage. With an effort to suppress the disgust in my heart, I gently placed a kiss on his cheek. Immediately, a resounding applause erupted from the audience. Truly, Ethan Ha is fortunate to have such a virtuous wife, a partner so completely loyal and capable. It's incredibly rare. It seems all hardships are past, and happiness has arrived. Pulling him away from the stage, I saw CEO Lin from a recent collaborative project smiling, raising his wine glass towards me as a congratulatory gesture. The devotion of you two is truly admirable. You waited patiently for him for 10 years. What more could a husband wish for than such an amazing life partner? My husband subtly nodded back with a smile, but a lack of sincerity was clearly visible on his face. Exactly. Having a wife like her, I feel as though I've accumulated blessings over countless lifetimes to be granted such good fortune. In the future, I will certainly dedicate all my efforts to repay my wife and children. I hope CEO Lin will continue his interest and support. Since I've only just returned to the company, my wife has endured many difficulties over the years. Perhaps I'll let her rest very soon and no longer participate in these public affairs. CEO Lin subtly furrowed his brows, showing concern, but remained silent. However, immediately after, a gasp of astonishment rang out, causing everyone to simultaneously look up at the giant screen at the back. Initially, the screen was showing a video of commemorative photos of our son, Leo Ha, but it had now abruptly switched to display private images of Ethan Ha with a woman who was not me. The entire room suddenly erupted into a noisy commotion. Many people began pointing and whispering about Ethan Ha. My eyes widened in feigned shock, watching the screen with an expression of disbelief at what was unfolding before me. What is this? Didn't you tell me that all these years you just had amnesia and lived as a coastal fisherman? Hearing those words, everyone's gaze turned towards him, revealing even greater disdain. Although it was just a photo, the decorative items behind the man in the picture were significantly valuable, completely inconsistent with the image of a poor fisherman. Clearly, he was deliberately fabricating a story. Ethan Ha's face suddenly turned pale. Who did this? Turn it off immediately? His panicked expression further solidified everyone's suspicions, and their gaze towards me was filled with deep sympathy. CEO Lin, who was still standing nearby, had built his career from scratch with his wife. He had already found Ethan Ha's earlier words abnormal, and now his eyes were filled with absolute contempt. We will no longer continue our cooperation with the Ha family. He raised his glass, looked at me, thought for a moment, and then added, unless it's you asterisk. I believe someone as decisive in business as you surely won't hesitate in matters of the heart either. His voice was not quiet at all, showing no regard for Ethan Ha. This man was considered a prominent figure in the industry. His public display of attitude swayed everyone who already disliked Ethan Ha's type to my side, but what I wanted didn't stop there. I opened my eyes wide, tears ceaselessly streaming down, clutching my chest in agony as if I had just suffered an immense shock. So everything I've done was just to build things up for someone else? Ethan Ha, are you worthy of me? Let's end this marriage. My father's company had long merged with Ha Corp. I absolutely had to seize this opportunity to establish my own position. Separating all assets from Ha Corp., I wanted nothing less than for Ethan Ha to be utterly ruined, never to be able to hold his head high again. Divorce, wife, let's go home and talk. Ethan Ha tried to grab my hand. I forcefully yanked my hand away from him. For 10 years, I alone shouldered the family and the company, waiting for a man who didn't even exist, only for you to be happily enjoying yourself elsewhere. And now you won't even agree to a divorce. Please just let me go, won't you? Many people nodded in agreement, their eyes filled with sympathy for me, but at that exact moment our son, Leo Ha's voice was heard. The boy was clearly frightened by the incident, but upon hearing that I wanted to divorce his father, he rushed forward for the first time to shield his father. Mom, please calm down. Isn't Dad home now? Dad's past with Ms. Lin is all over. Who put these things up here? Take them down quickly. My eyes widened in disbelief as I stared at him. What are you saying? What Ms. Lin? My son covered his mouth, instantly panicked. Everyone present was experienced enough to immediately understand the situation. I clutched my head and collapsed. So, for 10 years I alone struggled to raise you, and all this time, you not only knew your father's whereabouts but also all his actions. And you still conspired with others to deceive your mother, is that right? The boy could only gape, still speechless, hearing my son stammer, but Dad knows he made a mistake. I slapped him hard across the face. How could I have given birth to something like you? This sentence, long harbored in my heart, finally found its release. The naive child still clutched his face, pleading for his father, thinking that this was filial piety. "Mom, please calm down." In the very next moment, a cake unexpectedly flew and hit the boy, startling him. Not far away, another boy was glaring at him with wide eyes. "Leoha, you're disgusting. Are you even a son? Anyone who dares bully my mom, I will definitely punish, even if it's my own dad. What in the world are you doing? Your mom single-handedly struggled to raise you this big. Your dad cheated and you're covering for him? That's utterly disgusting. How could I have a classmate like you? You unfilial brat." His father was unfilial, and he was no different. Children's nature is very easily swayed by emotions. My son's birthday party that day had quite a number of guests. Not only teachers and classmates, but also friends from other classes whom I had invited. They aggressively hurled the cakes they held towards the two people standing in the middle of the stage. It wasn't until my son's face was completely covered in cake cream, making him unrecognizable, and he burst into uncontrollable sobs, that this spectacle finally paused. Never had the boy been in such a biased situation. Even though his mother was always busy day and night, she still cared for him meticulously. At school, he was an arrogant, overbearing rich kid. At home, he was the only son, spoiled to no end by his mother, who felt guilty that he lacked a father's love. Countless harsh and bitter words like these had almost completely broken the boy. I gently pushed the divorce agreement in front of Ethan Ha. His face was visibly pale. "Sign it." Ethan Ha showed his unwillingness. With the situation having become so scandalous, it was clear that he wouldn't be able to secure any projects in the city in the near future and would be forced to rely on me. He put on a facade of deep affection. At that time, I was just momentarily confused. Now I truly see my mistake. Haven't you always waited for me all these years? Can't you stop being upset anymore? I raised my head, my eyes fixed on the man. "If you don't want to end this marriage, then are you capable of helping me settle the debts?" He was stunned, his eyes wide with surprise. "Debts? What debts?" I placed the company's financial records in front of him for his review. When he saw that all the figures were losses, his complexion immediately became grim. "Isn't the company still operating very stably?" Tears seemed to well up in my eyes. "What does a woman like me know? All these years, I struggled to bear the burden, only hoping you would return so we could secure CEO Lin's project. But now everything has completely collapsed, all turned to nothing. The company has suffered losses to this extent, all because I borrowed money to cover it. If you agree to share this debt burden with me, we will forever remain a family." Ethan Ha's expression clearly changed. He was speechless. He looked at me with suspicion, seemingly doubting whether my words were true. I gritted my teeth, then swiftly lunged into his arms. "My dear husband, you won't abandon me, will you? I'm willing to overlook your mistakes, so you must be forgiving towards me too. I tried so hard to maintain the company, all because I loved you too much. You absolutely cannot abandon me." Hearing my words, he involuntarily shivered. I intently watched his still hesitant face, a flicker of mockery in my eyes. I had secretly siphoned off all that money a long time ago. What remained of Ha Corp now was just an empty shell. Even if he truly wanted to return to Ha Corp, it no longer held any meaning for me. Today's birthday party was merely a pretext I used to discreetly strip away all the assets. Over the past decade, while he was enjoying himself lavishly outside, I wasn't simply idly enjoying myself either. I not only wanted to build a new business of my own, but also wanted Ethan Ha to suffer a tragic failure, never to recover for the rest of his life. After a long night of restless deliberation, Ethan Ha placed the signed agreement on the table in front of me. "All right, we can go our separate ways, but custody of our son must belong to me. My dear wife, I will do everything in my power to make the company grow stronger, helping you pay off all your debts. And when everything is stable, we'll reunite." Our son looked at him with touched eyes. "Dad, I knew you'd never abandon me." The writer almost burst out laughing at this. I had no intention of exposing the falseness of that so-called deep father-son affection. Yet, that man had abandoned his own flesh and blood for a decade. And now, he was brazenly playing the role of the most noble father in the world. All my efforts poured into raising Leoha suddenly became a grand farce. It didn't matter to me. I had no expectations of this ungrateful child anyway. But I deliberately showed my anguish to make them trust me more easily. Just as I expected, my son became even more resolute in siding with that man, even declaring loudly, "Mom, if you don't let me live with Dad, then our mother-son relationship ends here." My eyes widened in shock, unable to believe what he said. What did you just say? When I heard him repeat those words, my heart clenched, and I turned my back and walked away. The moment I turned, the smile at the corner of my lips was almost impossible to hide. The very next day, I immediately went to the company to convene a shareholders' meeting. The scandalous events of yesterday had reached many ears through rumors, with even eyewitnesses present. Ethan Ha, with a gleeful, self-satisfied expression, stood at the head of the table. From now on, all of Ha Corp's operations will be handled by CEO Ethan here. I subtly bowed my head, slowly speaking. Ethan Ha had always believed that as a man, his return would undoubtedly make people obey him more easily than a weak, soft-handed woman. However, after numerous shareholders successively stood up and refused, his expression completely changed. This is Ha Corp, this is my family's legacy. My name is Ha, and she is merely a woman who just severed her marital ties with me. Anyone who intends to follow her is welcome to leave. Surely a prominent enterprise like mine won't miss a few of you. He originally intended to kill the chicken to scare the monkeys, as normally, who would dare mess with their livelihood? Unexpectedly, everyone present was a key technical staff member. The very people who had helped me rebuild Ha Corp from the brink of bankruptcy exactly 10 years ago. If it weren't for CEO Quack, your company would have collapsed long ago. What are you doing here causing trouble? A shareholder was so angry that he threw an object directly at his face. Witnessing everyone throwing resignation letters and share transfer documents, I finally realized everything was set. I let out a sigh of relief. I quickly completed my resignation procedures, then gathered the shareholders, announcing that I would establish a new company and invited anyone who wished to join to stay. Without hesitation, they expressed that wherever I went, they would follow. Ethan Ha seemed utterly bewildered. Why had everything gone so smoothly for me for the past half-month? Even seemingly minor issues, when it was his turn to handle them, no one would cooperate. Even for a non-major project, a CEO like him was forced to rub shoulders with the person in charge to entertain with drinks. How could he possibly comprehend that the thorny path he was now experiencing was the very one I had once trodden? In the past, for a single project, I had spared no effort, drinking myself to the point of being hospitalized for stomach bleeding 3 times. Once one reaches the pinnacle, one no longer notices any trivial obstacles. Everyone shows respect, bowing before you. However, now the Ha family faced countless adversities, further diminishing their already low standing. Precisely because of these troubles, he had almost no chance of returning to his former glory. The new company I built, on the other hand, was flourishing. After completing a project acceptance meeting with CEO Lin, I briefly spotted Ethan Ha not far away. He was utterly drunk, his eyes dull, lying sprawled on the ground like a broken being. Under CEO Lin's puzzled gaze, I went over to help him up. Mr. Lin, after all, he was once my husband. While I have no intention of rekindling old flames, I can't just leave him sprawled on the street. It's truly dangerous. CEO Lin watched me, his eyes showing a few more degrees of admiration. For upcoming projects, I still hope to collaborate with you. A woman with such a strong sense of loyalty and integrity as you, someone was truly blind not to see her worth. When I saw him turn and walk away, the smile on my face instantly vanished. I turned, pushed Ethan Ha into the car, and then delivered a powerful punch to his stomach. Since the day I discovered his betrayal, I had always harbored this desire. Only when my hand was aching and exhausted did I rub it, then dragged him home. Witnessing his disheveled state, my son couldn't help but be shocked. His father's face was swollen like a pig's head. "Dad, what happened?" "He drank too much and fell." I ignored him, turned my back, and resolutely walked away without a single glance back. After all, we had gone our separate ways. If it weren't to impress CEO Lin at today's meeting, I wouldn't have cared one bit about his fate. However, this could be considered a release for my pent-up bitterness. The next morning, I received a call from Ethan Ha. His voice sounded hoarse. "My love, I've truly realized my mistake. This family cannot possibly do without you. Have you cooled down from yesterday's anger?" I was a little surprised, then decided to feign ignorance. "What are you referring to?" His voice grew heavier. "Nina, you must know, even when I drink, I've never completely lost consciousness." Realizing I couldn't pretend any longer, I let go decisively. "So what? Are you going to call the police to arrest me?" On the other end, the man sighed. "It wasn't like this in the past." Before, whenever I returned from social gatherings, you would always carefully help me into bed, wipe me down, and even get up in the middle of the night to cook me hangover soup. I truly let you down. I completely disbelieved his sudden remorse and went straight to the point. If you truly feel guilty towards me, then transfer more money into my account. After the call connected, the man remained silent for a long moment, then abruptly hung up. But what I couldn't have predicted was that Ethan Ha would bring our son to block my doorway. It seemed his career had been turbulent lately. He looked visibly thinner. Rumor had it that Ha Corp was on the verge of bankruptcy, and he was forced to humble himself and beg for my leniency. I feigned complete detachment because it wasn't I who wanted to ruin his company. Those shareholders didn't like him to begin with. That matter had nothing to do with me. Men truly are born actors. Ethan Ha's eyes were red-rimmed, looking as if I were the guilty one. You bore me a son, protected this home for me, and endured solitude for 10 long years. I know you loved me deeply. Now you're just out of hope in me. I promise I'll change. Please come back to me. I gave him an icy glance. We've severed our marital relationship. If you continue to bother me here, I won't hesitate to call security to escort you away. Ethan Ha understood that I had completely turned my back on him, but our son seemed not to realize it. He stared at me with wide eyes. Mom, why are you saying such unacceptable things? Dad just made one mistake. You're so petty. I turned to look at him. We've severed our mother-son relationship. Have you forgot? Don't call me Mom. You're not worthy. The boy was so angry he couldn't restrain himself. He turned and stormed out. I had never uttered such heartbreaking words to him. Witnessing his father pleading so meekly, my heart remained unmoved. He smiled sinisterly at Ethan Ha. Just you wait, you'll see what I can do. The moment I heard Ethan Ha's call, I immediately knew my son was playing his old trick again, running away from home. Countless times before, this ploy had worked. Whenever I got too engrossed in work and forgot his feelings, Leo Ha would run away, forcing me to frantically search for him in worry. Even later, though I recognized the pattern, I still couldn't avoid the anxiety. The reason was he always went to the cemetery, where Ethan Ha's cenotaph and his own biological father's grave were located. He must have thought this time he'd scare me again, so he went back to the same spot. I went to the cemetery and handed the groundskeeper 500 yuan. Please turn off all the lights tonight and lock the gate for me. Before, it had taken me less than 30 minutes to find him. But today, Leo Ha sat smugly before the empty grave, patiently waiting, until the lights not far away suddenly flickered with an electric hiss, and the entire area plunged into darkness. He gulped, his neck straining in tension. Oh no, a power outage? But there was no reply, only graves all around him. He tried to suppress the fear swelling within him, retracing his steps along the path he had just taken, one step at a time. However, when he approached the gate, he realized it was firmly locked. Hearing Leo Ha's desperate cries, the groundskeeper frowned at me. Madam, are you sure about this? A child this age, running away every day, needs a proper lesson. I am his mother. I will take full responsibility for whatever happens. Because every time Leo Ha came, I had to come and console him. I had become familiar with the staff here. They also understood the nature of our relationship. Receiving my assurance, they felt relieved. They took the money and went back to rest. Ethan Ha, meanwhile, searched tirelessly for his son all night. Leo Ha, terrified, curled up in a corner of the cemetery, falling asleep from fear. Until the next morning, burning with fever, he was frantically rushed to the hospital by Ethan Ha. How could you be this cruel? He glared at me. Isn't this your own son? The truth was, deep down, I had long since stopped considering him my own flesh and blood. However, too weary to argue with him further, I turned and walked away. My company was in a period of rapid growth. Last night, I had put an end to the days of wasting time on that father and son. As soon as I arrived at the company, a key technical staff member eagerly rushed to report. Ha Corp stock has plummeted nonstop. It's now nothing more than a lifeless corpse. His phone must be ringing off the hook. CEO Quack, have you seen the Knight of Ha yet? I nodded slightly, smiling. Of course, it's the Knight of Ha. Ethan Ha's phone was indeed about to explode from incoming calls. He tried to hang up one call after another but couldn't make them stop. What awaited him was not just bankruptcy, but countless debts. Now, Ethan Ha was filled with deep remorse. He should have kept a large sum of money, enough to live comfortably abroad for the rest of his life. But before he could make any calculations, the nurse wheeled Leo Ha, delirious with high fever, in front of him and asked, "Does the patient have any history of drug allergies?" Ethan Ha involuntarily broke out in a cold sweat. He had no idea. Since the child was 5 years old, the two of them hadn't seen each other. How could he possibly know if his son had drug allergies? The nurse shot him an angry glance. What kind of parent are you? Do you know anything at all? Ethan Ha was already annoyed by his incessantly ringing phone in his pocket, and now being yelled at directly, he blurted out, "No, he's very healthy, his body is so strong, how could he have allergies?" The nurse, reassured, wheeled the boy away. But less than half an hour later, she frantically pushed Leo Ha into the emergency room. "Where are the patient's family members? You don't even know what your own son is allergic to? He's now in severe anaphylactic shock. We can only try our best to save him. You're such an irresponsible father." Ethan Ha froze, stammering, "I really don't know what he's allergic to." But no one listened to him, hurrying Leo Ha away. Ethan Ha slumped onto the hospital hallway floor, stunned, clutching his head and sobbing loudly. At this moment, regret surged within him. Due to high fever and drug allergies, Leo Ha had become disoriented, no longer lucid. According to the doctor, his chance of recovery was an uncertain unknown. The likelihood of successful treatment was extremely small. Saliva drooled uncontrollably from the corner of his mouth. All his movements were beyond his control. Occasionally, he would have brief moments of lucidity, but immediately after, he would sink back into forgetting everything. Meanwhile, Ethan Ha had almost no time to care for him. The burden of work at the company had completely exhausted him. Finally, he recognized the anomaly. On the day Ethan Ha appeared, I was preparing dinner with my new lover. He gritted his teeth, glaring at the other man. He demanded, "Who is this man?" I stifled a yawn. I replied, "What does that have to do with you? This is just the young man at the company who's always been pursuing me." He seemed to realize something, suddenly understanding that I had lured him back from the very beginning. He angrily threw a stack of bills at me, but I managed to lean away and dodge them. He roared, "These invoices are clearly fraudulent. You've been playing games for a long time, haven't you?" I merely silently watched his fit of rage, then subtly nodded. "Not bad, you finally figured it out, but you are truly too naive." Ethan Ha seemed almost out of control with anger. He questioned, "Why are you treating me like this? Don't you know what's become of our son?" I replied coldly, "Our son's condition is entirely your fault. Instead, I want to ask you, I sacrificed everything for you, for this family, so how have you treated me? Ultimately, this is just the deserved consequence for what you've done." With that, I signaled for the security guard to escort him out of the house. Ethan Ha glared at me with bitter resentment. He shouted, "You are truly a cruel woman. What man hasn't made mistakes?" But I didn't care about him for another second. Ethan Ha was roughly dragged away, no different from a worthless object. When Ethan Ha wearily dragged himself back to his home, he was shocked to find the house sealed with an eviction notice. Along with Leo Ha, still drooling uncontrollably, sitting aimlessly on the sidewalk. He had become a genuine homeless person, his assets were completely gone, and his house had long been confiscated. At that moment, Ethan Ha was so pathetic that even a passing dog gave him a kick. He reached out to hold his son's hand, planning to find a place to stay for the night, hoping to rebuild his life from scratch. Perhaps he could find another woman willing to help. And this time, he swore he wouldn't disappoint her. But the person standing behind him forcefully pulled his hand away from his grasp. He turned back, stunned, his eyes fixed on his son. Leo Ha's eyes suddenly glinted with a rare moment of clarity. Though saliva still drooled from the corners of his mouth, he looked directly at his father and articulated each word clearly. "You should have died on that flight. Then my mom wouldn't have abandoned me. Our family wouldn't have fallen apart like this, and my friends wouldn't mock me." "Why didn't you just die on that plane?" Ethan Ha felt his blood boil. He had stumbled countless times, and now even his own son wanted to crush him. He felt he had lost the very last shred of a man's dignity. A resounding slap landed squarely on Leo Ha's cheek. Leo Ha didn't flinch but immediately struck back. At 16, he already had the physique of an almost adult. Only after knocking his son down did Ethan Ha feel satisfied, raising his fist at him. "No matter what, I am still your father." However, seeing his son sprawled on the ground, drooling, he suddenly burst into tears. Perhaps he had truly acted wrongly. It seemed he should have ended his life on that fateful flight. The crushing burden of debt had completely overwhelmed him. The fact that his son was unable to care for himself also twisted his gut to the core. He wanted to flee, as he had done before. But now, with overwhelming debts, he had become a completely useless parasite. He wasn't even eligible to leave the country. In the quiet depths of the night, as he held a family photo of the three of them, he couldn't help but call me again. Hearing Ethan Hawes' number, I didn't hesitate and immediately hung up. In the middle of the night like this, don't make me despise you even more. Ethan Haw turned his head to look at his son, still lying on the ground, only his son's words echoing in his mind. Why didn't you die on that flight? Only at this moment did he truly realize how foolish a choice he had made. When I heard the news of Ethan Hawes' death, I wasn't particularly surprised. His nature was weak and selfish. He couldn't endure any negative impact, yet he had to face Leo Ha every day. He absolutely couldn't accept the truth that his own actions had driven his son into such a tragic state. Nevertheless, I attended Ethan Hawes' funeral. Not for any emotional reason, but because my company's career needed to be maintained and developed. My personal image absolutely could not be tarnished. Upon arriving, I merely cleverly feigned shedding a few tears, just for appearances. Witnessing Leo Ha, still naive and foolish, I painfully clutched him close, but I made no mention whatsoever of taking him home to care for him. Because the mother-son relationship between us had completely ended on the day, I divorced his father.